Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thinking is Infinite with Joe and John. We are a father and son podcast team, and this is our very first episode. And in this episode, we would like to introduce ourselves, so you, the audience, can learn a little bit about us, and then we will talk about little topics that interest us, and hopefully you will enjoy it. But first things first, I would like to introduce my co-host, my son, Joseph.
Okay, hello, to all you people watching. I am Joseph, and I am a 10th grader. I live in New York, and it's actually pretty good. I've been relaxing because today is Labor Day. I get to be off from school. Though I actually kind of like school. My favorite subject is science. I love the color blue. And actually my whole room is blue. And I love a bunch of different things, actually. I kind of like learning about how, different organisms function, how we can improve our world through medicine. I'm thinking about being a biomedical scientist when I grow up. When I go to college, I mean.
Well, and one of the things that makes Joe very special is, why don't you talk a little bit about what makes you Joe?
Okay, well, first of all, I am an autistic kid, and there are a few things you should probably know about me. First of all, I actually kind of have trouble, formulating my sentences. So what I'll often do is pause a little bit to kind of process my thoughts. I often actually talk to myself as well, and I'll often use that as a way to, process my thoughts. I also had a bit of trouble with crowds and things. I didn't really like crowds, at least when I was younger. Now I do, because I'm better with that. I've kind of improved over time, but back when I was a kid, I remember that I would often get very uncomfortable with crowds. I would want to, immediately go away from, large gatherings of people. It would just make me feel overwhelmed in all those ways. I also was I also have trouble, forming social interactions. I often have trouble starting a conversation. Once I get started, the conversation just kind of rolls right along, but it's usually pretty hard to start one for me, at least.
Yeah, and one of the things that, from my perspective, being a dad of someone like Joseph, who's been such an amazing kid along the way, is that in the very beginning, I never would have imagined that here I am, and here is my son at 15, and he is so articulate, so intelligent, and right now, Joseph has joined the broadcast team at Mepham High School, correct?
Yeah, okay.
Excited about that?
Yeah, I am. We are going to be doing, different shoots. There's a broadcasting program at my school. It's actually, pretty large, actually. It's one of the largest, at least on Long Island, at least. It's kind of a, how do you say it? There are different positions that you can take, so I can be in the control room, a broadcaster, or you can, be behind the camera, you can get work editing, writing. There's so many different, positions in broadcasting. And I kind of wanted to explore the world of broadcasting, basically, since I was kind of a kid. I've kind of been interested in broadcasting, even though that's never been, my main pursuit, but it's always been, a side pursuit, something that I've always thought about on the side, but never really thought about as my main objective or goal. And the broadcasting program presented an opportunity for me to advance that goal. First time I actually tried, I didn't get in. The second time I did. So most of the people in my class are actually 1 year younger than me. I am one of only two 10th graders in that class. Me and another girl who I can't remember their name. That'll be a common theme. I often can't remember people's names.
Well, now what if you can pick one part of the broadcasting that you can do out of all the things you've seen so far? What would it be? Would it be in front of the camera, or would it be behind the scenes?
Probably in front of the camera, because I really want to kind of, be on TV, kind of speak to the world and express different things. I've always been interested in how the broadcasters behind the camera, they have like different teleprompters and they follow those. I've always wanted to be behind, on camera,
Well, one of the things that I think would fascinate the audience is to, and you've already touched base a little bit about it, is talk about some of the things and some of the experiences you've had growing up. And it was interesting. We were talking just a little while ago about how you don't really think of autism as a disability. You think of it as how would you describe autism in your mind? Not as so much as a disability. You having trouble even articulating that and saying it.
It's actually, it's kind of a strength. It can be a strength, but it needs help to activate, because autistic people are often, at least for me, I don't know if this is the case for everyone, but they're often very interested and very passionate about either a specific subject or a specific group of subjects. So you'll have autistic kids that are really passionate about science, math, reading, the arts, and I feel like autistic people and people of all disabilities and things for that matter, I'm having trouble with that again, should be allowed to have the help and support that they need. And that's actually very important, because many people, especially like teachers and things, and and even some parents, don't really know how to support autistic kids and actually help them grow and learn. Especially due to the fact that autism and other disorders like ADHD, ODD, general anxiety disorder, a bunch of other things, aren't really talked about that much. And I feel like people do need to be more educated and knowledgeable on how to parent kids with these types of, disabilities and help them grow.
Yeah, I mean, I remembered raising you when you were a little kid, and you were having a difficult time in stores and in social settings. That people would look at you differently and look at me and wonder why I'm not scolding you for having a meltdown or having a difficult time. And it was something that I realized that not everyone understands what autism is all about, or many other disabilities for that matter. And it's not that they're being mean, it's just that they're a little bit ignorant, I guess, if you want to use that term, and they don't really understand what a child like such as yourself was going through back then,
or even is right now. And that's kind of the thing. Like, you can't tell if someone... First of all, you can't really tell if someone's, like, autistic or many of these disorders. Only a doctor can really realize that. And second, many people, like, it's not really taught anywhere. Like, think about it. When have you ever been taught about ADHD, ODD, GAD, or autism? When has that been taught to you in either the education system or even elsewhere online? Not much, unless you're in the autistic community yourself. So many people outside of that don't really understand it, and many of them just don't have any way to articulate it and fully comprehend it.
Well, that's an interesting thing you said there about how people don't understand it. So, Joseph, you have the world right now and you're listening. Tell someone who has zero knowledge of autism, what does it feel like to be in a crowded setting, or what does it feel like to be somewhere where you cannot you need to leave? What does that feel like inside of you? Tell me a little bit about that, or inside your brain or inside your body.
Well, actually, that's a good question. Oftentimes when I was little, I would often get into these types of situations a lot. And oftentimes my brain, it's just very, like, overwhelming, oftentimes in, like, not only in crowded places, but also, like, very loud spaces and things like that. I would just get completely, like, frightened. My heart would be beating very quickly. Oftentimes, it's just a very overwhelming experience, like, especially, it's kind of like the feeling you get when you're, like, I guess, like, working too hard or something. Like, it's very overwhelming, and oftentimes, I would just have to, like, get out of there. Like, I couldn't stay.
I feel like panic.
Exactly. Well, not as large of, like, a panic attack as other things, but, like, a little bit of a panic, and I would want to leave kind of immediately. Like, I wouldn't want to delay, I wouldn't want to stay there, I would just want to leave. I've grown, better at that. I haven't had as many of those, but I do definitely remember them. Like, I had, this party that, I went to, there was a DJ there, and it was very crowded, and I was immediately overwhelmed by all of it. I just wanted to get out of there. I wanted to go to the car. I wanted to be alone. It's, it's very, like...
It must have been very difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, also, you had mentioned one other time to me, and I would love to hear you touch base on it in the next minute or so, is how sometimes smells and tastes also impact how you feel. Does that happen as well still?
Not as much, but I do remember that, like, when I would have, like, oftentimes, even today, I'll have, like, this type of situation where I can't handle, like, bad tastes, so much so that I often don't try new foods, or even, like, new things, even. Like, I'll watch, like, the same shows that I have watched for years, because I'm not willing to venture outside of that, like, comfort zone. Mm-hmm. At least that's how it is for me. I don't know if this is the case for all autistic children, because many of them are very different from each other.
Of course.
Like, I met a kid named Ray in my one of my old schools, and he was very shy. He often had trouble, like, talking. He needed an iPad. He talked in front of his parents, but not much in school. He was actually very cute, because he was, he was only 4 years old at the time, and I was actually in, like, 5th grade, so that was, like, 4 years, that was, like, 4 years back, but, well, probably 5 if you count this year, but, like, it was kind of, difficult for him, and also there are some autistic kids that can't even talk, and they need to use, like, sign language. Actually, I remember when I was little, I couldn't talk, like, 3 years old. You guys taught me sign language, and I learned how to talk, so...
Yeah, and it was a blessing to actually hear you speak, because then I as a father can understand and know what your needs were at that time, instead of guessing, because guessing is very difficult. And I think that's what the main thing is, if there is a child who is not verbal, that there is a beautiful mind going on in that head, and they just need to
have a platform to express it,
and also just to understand that they sometimes can be going through struggles that someone who doesn't have that doesn't really understand. And someone like me can stand in a crowd, and I'm still uncomfortable in crowds, and I can only imagine what you were going through as a child, and really feeling that overwhelmed sensation where you almost feel like you're ready to explode. We're definitely going to talk about these things a little bit in each podcast as we move forward, but this was a pretty good start on discussing each one of us and talking a little bit about what Joseph goes through on a daily basis. So when we come back, we'll talk about some subjects that interest both of us, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Okay.
All right, welcome to our next segment, and Joe would like to discuss some things that parents should never, ever say certain words that parents try to say when they're trying to be cool in front of their kids.
But really sound terrible. Okay.
Exactly.
So
and
we
how,
are
how
going
often
to talk
do
about
how
that.
often have I done that?
Quite a lot. Anyway, so we're going to be saying these words. We're having 10 of them. So, we have 5 for
And
this
some honorable
list,
mentions.
and some honorable mentions. But the 5th word that we're going to be saying here is probably lit. Lit is a word that is often used to, on like TikToks and things. But if a dad says this is lit or whatever, it just sounds terrible. Like, people say that when they're trying to sound like, yeah, I know the times, baby, and in reality they're just completely out of touch. That's one of the main signs you can tell that.
So if I say this show, oh my god, I watch a show and it's lit, that's wrong?
That's definitely,
Okay.
that is 100% wrong.
Okay, so
all
that's-
you will sound like is someone who is an old person at age like 85. But that's not as bad as our number 4 choice, which is rad. Rad sounds even worse. It sounds like someone from, like, the 50s, Oh, yeah, this is, like, rad, dude.
Well, that was kind of 80s, but okay, now you're making me feel real old because 50s. But I do remember rad was a thing, but I never really liked rad when it was rad. To like rad. Just say
Okay.
rad.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. It's very dated. This is actually something that we actually came up with when we were actually at a drive to Wendy's when we came up with this. So our number 3rd was sick. Sick is something that even when I hear it from a younger person, I just feel disappointed, I feel like it's just cringy. It's not a good word. I don't like it. If you're gonna try to be cool, at least use words that are less dated than sick or rad. That was actually a pretty hard choice between those 2 words. And it's going to be a pretty hard choice between our number 2 and number 1.
Before we go to number 2 and number 1, so I should only use sick if someone who's actually feeling ill.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Just want to make
that's
sure.
Fine.
From a parent perspective, I want to be cool.
Yeah.
So I do not say sick like, oh, that's sick. It's like,
No.
are you sick?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
All right.
Because people just use that all the time. It's just, traditional thing. I don't really care using it that way, but if you're trying to use it the other way, you're probably going to flop in front of your kids and just look like an embarrassment. But not as much as an embarrassment as our number 2 word, which is fire. Fire, which was actually thrown around a lot on TikTok. You'd see this is lit fire. Oh my god, fire, fire. And it's just bad. I don't like that term. Even many people just, if you use it, and especially if you're a dad or a mom or even a grandparent, you use the word fire, your kids are just gonna say,
Don't
no,
do it. Don't do it, parents.
No, please. Especially if you do it in a school. If you do it in their school, you're over to them, and you're probably not going to ever win back
God,
their
that-
trust.
that would be horrible.
Because you're just gonna embarrass them in front of literally everyone. So we have our number 1 choice, but first we gotta do some kind of dishonorable mentions. We got bra. Bra is sorta okay, but it wasn't as bad as our other picks, but it's still pretty bad to use. It still sounds
So if
pretty
you're not
cringy,
listening to me,
and,
if you're not listening to me and I go, brah, that's not good.
Not really. Not as bad as the other choices that we picked, but it's still bad enough to make our
Don't do it,
dishonorable
parents.
mentions.
Don't do it, parents.
Yes. Then we have nugs. This was actually the word that inspired this list. My dad said, "Do you want some nugs?" And I'm like, "Don't do that." And then
I did say that.
actually came up with the idea for this segment. So hey. Good things come from everything.
In my defense, that was a radio commercial I heard on the way to pick you up for dinner.
Actually, it is used in that commercial, but I still don't like the phrase.
Now I know.
It is used in a Wendy's. It is actually used in a Wendy's commercial, but I just don't like it personally. I feel like it's just very bad. But if you like it, that's fine. It's just
not
my
for parents.
thing. It's not my thing either. And then we have our finally we have our number one pick is YOLO. YOLO is so out of touch that even young people don't say YOLO anymore. So I haven't heard a young person say YOLO since like 2011, but for some reason parents think, or at least some parents, think that sounds cool. It doesn't, okay? It just sounds weird, like you just stumbled into like some sort of time machine, and you've gone back to 2011, you have to talk to all those kids.
All right.
More like you're from 2011, and you're going to the future, but still... It's still just it's probably the cringiest one that I could think of. If you actually have any more, you can actually feel free to
put in a message.
Leave your suggestions in the
chats area.
In the chat area, or in like I don't know if there's a comment section. I think there probably is one on Spotify. But
be nice in the comments.
Yeah, don't harass each other.
Be nice to us. We're not bad. By the way,
don't harass
Joe,
each other.
I think this whole segment was sick. All right, brah?
Please don't.
Let's go get some nugs. Well, welcome to our third section of the Joe and John podcast. Our first ever podcast together.
That's right, baby.
And what better to wrap it up than talk about some of the news, some of the current events that we have going on. Now,
okay, so first it's your segment first, your little talk first.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some things that we actually talk about on our own. Now, let's just get it started, and we're going to kind of set the tone a little bit about who we are. Now, I run center right. Joseph, I think, runs center left.
I'm actually not center left. I'm actually very center. I'm like right in the middle. So
He's
I'm
center
not,
left.
Actually, no, I'm actually not. My sister, though, she is very left. I know that my brother also is. I'm kind of in the middle. I often come off as center left to my dad because he's kind of more to the right. But I kind of feel like both political parties are just very like. They're very, like, cult-like, you know what I mean? You either worship the party, or you're worshiping a specific person. Well, if you're to the right, you're worshiping Trump. If you're to the left, you're worshiping the party. So either way is bad.
I actually agree with you there. I think that the world has become, in my opinion, the term I like to call is tribal. And everyone has to jump into their tribe, regardless of what they have to take a side and stick with it. Now, one of the things I like to think that you are, Joseph, and I think I am as well, is I don't sit in a tribe. If I try to look at things from a 360 perspective and see every single avenue before I decide. I don't let the news decide what I'm thinking. I don't let a politician decide what I'm thinking. I'm on my own mind, and I really think you're your own mind too. And that's why I'm proud of you, Joe. But one of the things I like to talk about, and it's not talked about enough in my opinion, is the second part of a subject, which is talked about all the time, is COVID. I mean, we've been dealing with COVID for about a year and a half, and we're at the point right now where my personal opinion is we haven't talked enough, and this is both parties, about the medicines that are out there. At this point, we've had millions of people that have gotten it. Sadly, a lot of people have passed away from it.
Definitely.
And it's one of those things where I've come to the conclusion in my brain, and I think a lot of people in the world have come to this conclusion, is that it's not going away.
It's definitely not.
So
but,
you get a vaccination, you could still get it. If everyone gets vaccinated.
Just due to like the fact that the virus is mutating very quickly. The problem is that in order for this to have ended with the vaccine, we would have needed to vaccinate people at a speed that simply wasn't possible. Like, even if all the people who are vaccine hesitant actually got the vaccine, it still would have mutated because it just mutates very quickly.
Yeah, and
it mutates too fast to the point where you can't even get the vaccination ready in time, and you're already being bombarded with a new strain that is either a little bit more resistant to the vaccine or even just immune from it entirely.
Well, one of the things, for full disclosure, is I've been vaccinated, and Joseph, you have had COVID.
Yeah, I have had COVID.
And you
haven't
know
been
what it feels
vaxxed
like.
yet, but I'm thinking about getting vaxxed. I'm kind of in the middle, but I'm going to talk about that in a bit.
But right now, one of the things that I'm more would like to discuss right now is the medicines that can help anyone, whether you have gotten the vaccination or not gotten the vaccination. What can you take that can possibly help you out? And I think, without getting into the specific medications, because that's really for the doctor and the patient to discuss. It's not for two podcasters to talk about,
or basically anyone else. I feel like medical diagnosis, you should trust medical professionals first, and this is actually pretty important. Like, don't listen too much to these like radio hosts or even like news segments on all these networks. Listen to doctors, because they know what they're talking about. They've had years of medical experience. They've had often have studied for years in colleges, universities, gotten degrees and all that stuff. Just, for any medical advice, call your doctor.
Trust
them. Trust them.
Now, one of the things I've had experiences with is had family members, friends that have gotten COVID, and at my age group, not necessarily a young person like my son, that have had to get medication. And one of the things I learned is that if you get the medication quickly, some type of medications, there's a few out there that I'm not going to get specific about, but it can help you. So one of the things I wished that the government, more people out there, would discuss the actual list of medications that have shown to have worked for some people. Because I'm telling you right now, people in my world have taken some of the medications and it's helped them. Mm-hmm. And I wish they would start talking about that just as much as they talk about the shots, because the shot itself, right,
is a prevention.
What I learned about the shot is it's what they call a little army in your system that helps you in fighting it. It doesn't really stop you from getting it. It can help you stop you from getting it, but for the most part, if you get it, you have that army ready for you and ready to defend yourself.
If you inhale that virus, right, it kind of trains your immune system. So when you have antibodies for many different illnesses, when a vaccine is introduced into your body produces, it's like dead or very weakened versions of the virus. So your body's going to produce antibodies to fight that off, so that when it comes into contact with the real virus, it can also fight that off using those antibodies.
I just wish that I wish that there would be just as much attention on the medications as they are on the vaccines, because right now it seems like the world has gotten into this whole thing where everyone is either pro or anti-vaccine. Now again, my son Joseph has introduced me as on the right. I feel like I'm center right, and I'm not jumping into a tribe and screaming no vaccination. I personally looked at my decision and my personal history, and I felt it was right for me. For my son, he had COVID, but if he chooses, if he wants to, it's one of those things where if the vaccine can help him in fighting off a new variant, then it's a smart decision to make. So again, it's between you and a doctor, but I really do feel that there should be a lot more discussion on the therapeutics, because here's the deal. It's not going away. It's mutating. It's probably going to mutate to something else next year, right? So,
maybe, if it's not stopped soon enough, because the thing with vaccinations is that I feel like people should definitely kind of... The thing with this vaccine that makes it different from others, because most vaccines, I'm fine with kind of mandating those, at least for kids, but unlike most shots that have been thoroughly researched for like 5, maybe like 10 years,
or longer,
or even longer than that, like, the polio shot was researched for like a decade before it came out, or like 5 years or something. This vaccine has only been out for, first of all, it's only been out for a year, and it's only been researched for a year. I get that they had to like rush it through because all the COVID virus was spreading too fast, but it also means that there isn't as much how do you say it? Like the data isn't as solidified as some of the older vaccines, which have been thoroughly studied and shown not only to be safe but also effective against those viruses, and that actually do help protect you. Like, I feel like you should be kind of vaccinated, but I feel like it shouldn't be like mandated. You know what I mean? You should get vaxxed, but it shouldn't really be like something that the government tells you to do. You should just do it, on your own volition.
Yeah, and some people think that it should be mandated. I personally believe that everyone should make their own decisions between them and their doctor, and I don't believe that it should be mandated. However, if we ever get to the point where we have a proven, safe, long track record of eliminating COVID, yeah, then I'm all for a full, widespread, everyone should get it. But right now we're still in the early throes. Right now, I got my vaccination a few months ago. From what I just heard is I'm going to have to get a booster in another 5-6 months.
Yeah, and that's true. Like, that too, because now what they're just starting to discover is that boosters are starting to get required, and a lot of this, like, it just all of a sudden comes out. So, like, they say, oh, well, you only need 2 shots. Then they say, oh, well, now you need a third, now you need a fourth. It, like, keeps going like that, and I feel like that really does at least prove to me that the research isn't solidified yet. It's not solid.
Perfected.
It's kind of
and here's the deal.
muddled.
Here's the deal.
Everyone has had
their own experiences with either COVID or the vaccination. Now, my personal experience, the first shot, all right, I felt okay. Second shot, I felt miserable for a day and a half. I'm not really looking forward to feeling miserable for another day and a half after getting another shot. So I'm really hoping that science and we can catch up to this tricky virus before I feel like I need to get another shot. Or maybe I'll even run to my doctor and have him do an antibody test. Again, it's between you and your doctor, but I don't really want to get this third shot. And I don't think many people do. Who wants to get a third one if you've already had 2, right?
I mean, yeah, like, unless you like needles, or, I like needles, but not many people do.
No.
I'm kind of like my aunt. My aunt actually loves needles. She'll literally say, like, please put this needle in my body. Most people aren't like that. Also, another thing is, speaking of that, it's also, this kind of, like, scientific hesitancy that I also don't really like either, because many people don't really trust, like, science and, like, established science. Like, I'm not talking about, like, COVID, because that's kind of new, but, like, even, like, on, like, older vaccines, which have been thoroughly studied for years and years, no one, like, some people legitimately don't trust that, and I feel like that's kind of a shame. I feel like people need to kind of trust what, like, these scientific institutions tell them, because many of these, like, anti-vaxxers, like the genuine anti-vaxxers, not like the people who are like, we need to study this for longer, like the genuine anti-vaxxers, they all get their information from either Facebook or Twitter, and that's not really a good place to get any kind of info, really. Discuss that with your doctor and listen to kind of scientific advice rather than just these groups or whatever, because they often have motives of their own.
Well, I'll tell you,
either making money or getting famous.
Now, not that I do believe I've actually gotten the shot. I've already told everyone. But I will give you the flip side of that, though. The flip side of that is there's also a lot of money in big medicine. And there's money in money that's going to be made from this vaccination by these big pharmaceuticals. So could there be a mistrust in that field? Yeah, there could be. You would love to think that everyone has the right intention, that Pfizer has the right intention, that they really want to get rid of this virus, like Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. But
they're kind of out there to make money too.
But money rules.
Well, and money does talk. Money talks loud.
And never underestimate the amount of influence that money can have on any situation.
Money has a lot of influence in just politics in general. You know how many corrupt senators there are, and how many
all of them
leaders are just incredibly bribed. all of them are so corrupt these days. And I was actually looking into, there was a legislation that was proposed to counteract that. It was called the For the People Act, but they tried to get it through. The Republicans blocked it. It was actually written by a Republican FEC chairman. I actually researched further into this because I wanted to know if some of the Republicans are claiming, like, oh, it's blocking freedom of speech and things like that. So I wanted to, like, research further into this to find out if it was actually doing that. I found out that many of the provisions of the act are written by, like, Republicans who have talked about big money in politics and kind of seem to want to make the situation better. Although I encourage most of you to do your research on these things and, you know, kind of form your own opinions on them.
And I think
also,
what would be easier than term limits?
Especially that too.
That gets rid of everybody.
Yeah,
so
this
one can't be corrupt.
And not only that, but you should also have to... Many of these lobbyists, what they'll do is they'll just pay them off. You have to ban that, or at least heavily restrict it. Congress members shouldn't be allowed to serve on, like, executive boards and things like that. And also, and, like, things like, you know, just getting that money out in all ways, shapes, and forms.
Yeah, I think...
That needs to be rooted out and can't really be tolerated anymore, I feel like.
I hope for a world where...
People kind of need to unite and say no to that, I feel like, because... They kind of want you to stay divided, if you really think about it. The billionaires don't want people to unite at all, so... I mean, it's true. They'd rather have people divided.
Well, that was our segment of the left and the right, or the center left and center right. Okay, welcome to our fourth section of our pilot episode. And this portion is Joseph requested that he wanted to talk about a certain topic. He's extremely interested in the business world, and he would like to discuss some of the things that some of these companies that you definitely have heard of, and what they're doing right now in certain mergers and certain partnerships.
More specifically, in the beauty industry. Now, you might be wondering how I was actually interested in this in the first place, and that's a good question. Answer is I usually look at, like, one company at a time. So I was looking into Target. I was big into looking into, you know, how Target was doing, their financial reports, those kind of things. I actually downloaded some SEC filings on my phone. I have some of them. And anyway...
He's the only 15-year-old that I know that has SEC filings on his phone. I don't know what other kids have on their phones, but I know he's got SEC filings.
Anyways... So while I was doing that, I discovered that Target and Ulta Beauty are actually partnering up in order to launch their own store within a store models. And then Sephora and Kohl's announced they were linking up, and that Sephora is actually getting out of JCPenney. And JCPenney is doing their own beauty concept. I really don't have much faith in JCPenney. I feel like they've already gone too far down. They're kind of like at their point of no return, I feel like, with Penny. I'd like to say that I have faith in them because my grandma actually used to work there, but I don't really have much of a faith in them.
Now, what I'd like to say about the companies like JCPenney, and I think a lot of it has to do with what has seemed to have gone away in a big way, is the existence of the mall and existence of the all-day shopping spree, and it seems to become a lot of online stuff. But with that, I'm the novice in this subject. Joe's the expert, so Joe, why don't you tell me about the other ones?
It sort of is. The answer is... malls are a big part of it. Malls are declining, but it's also kind of odd. It's like a cycle, what I found. The first thing had to be the department stores, the major big chains. They all started to become outdated and very irrelevant. And, like, you know, their stores were faded, people didn't want to go to them. And without those anchors, malls started to lose traffic, stores started to close in those malls, which drew even more people away from them, which meant that the department stores lost even more traffic, and the cycle repeats. So it was kind of a downward spiral for malls and department stores.
So now, one of the things that I would like to ask you, Joe, you've looked at, you said 3 different partnerships, right?
Yeah.
One with Target, one with JCPenney, and one with
Kohl's. The biz with the big ones.
Who do you think in your opinion, after looking at all these things, which partnership is going to do best? You've already kind of given me which one's going to do worst. Tell me which one's going to do best and why you think that one's going to do best.
It's kind of hard because they work in very different ways. Ulta Beauty is actually kind of like more of a franchising agreement because Target's actually operating the Ulta stores and they're training their own staff with Ulta's help to be experts in these beauty products, whereas Sephora is more of a they're renting out space from Kohl's. And it is kind of a difference because in Sephora's, apparently, you can use I think you can use like Sephora Beauty Insider, but not Kohl's Cash. And in Target, it would be the other way around. You can use like Target Circle. You can actually earn you can actually earn like Ulta Beauty points, but you can't redeem them at Ulta Beauty at Target. And they're also pretty different in like their sizes. Target's is only going to be like a little section of their beauty department, whereas Kohl's is replacing their entire one with Sephora. So I think they're a big difference, but I feel like Target has a little bit of an upper hand because I feel like they have more hooks to draw customers in. They're kind of starting to become like a mall. They have Disney partnerships. They've had one with Starbucks, with the food court, mini food court. They had one with Apple even now. They're launching like stores within stores for them. Target's starting to become a mini mall, and it has a lot of things that it can use to draw people in.
So you think Target's got the
Kohl's
advantage?
is more reliant, Kohl's more reliant on Sephora. Though that doesn't mean Kohl's isn't like a good partnership. It is, especially because Sephora fits better with Kohl's because it fits better with the traditional department stores. Whereas I feel like Ulta fits better with Target because it's kind of more like it's not like upscale, but it's like kind of in the middle, like the same place Target lies. You know what I mean? They kind of go well together as well as Kohl's and Sephora, but in terms of that, I feel like both of them do have established fan bases, though. So it will be interesting to see where this ultimately goes, and if I'm proven right or wrong.
Do you think that Target, if they build this experience with a Starbucks, a Ulta, and the Target and the eyeglasses, do you think they'll start building hotels so people could just stay overnight and just shop the next morning too?
Actually, that's actually kind of a good one there. Actually, but yeah, they're kind of starting to become like the new mall. That's what they're trying to be, and I feel like that's their strategy. And it kind of proves that the concept of malls isn't dying. It's the way that they've been conducting, and the fact that or at least some of them, have become outdated and very, kind of irrelevant. That's what's causing the death of malls, not so much the idea of shopping around, because people still like to shop in stores. Like, if I'm going grocery shopping, you usually want to go to the store, unless, you can do it online, but, that's kind of, iffy for some people, especially because, the Shipt driver might not get the order right, or, you might want to pick out fresh produce yourself. So, as well as, apparel, you might want to try the stuff on while you're there.
Well, I think that's a key, Joe. I think when it comes to things that people would shop for, especially clothing, is there's nothing that replaces seeing yourself in it in the mirror and walking around and feeling the fabric, because you can only see what the fabric looks like, but actually feeling it on your skin and feeling how it feels. And then walking around a mall is something that I did as a kid. And what we see right now on Long Island, we see two very different situations when it comes to malls. And I'll give two examples. One, Roosevelt Field, which has high-end shops, and it's
actually doing
bustling.
Really well. It's very busy.
And
extremely busy.
And then you have the Sunrise Mall, which is basically a ghost town. And
if you go to Sunrise Mall, you're seeing no one there, and you're seeing a lot of empty shops. And
so what it begs to is that there can be life if they have the right stores.
And if they have the right experience. So there can be ways for malls to survive, but there needs to kind of be, there needs to be a reason for people to go there. And it also needs to be in the right market. Because upper class malls are doing better than many mid-scale or low-scale malls. So I feel like it needs to be more upscale. There needs to be more of an experience. Like, some malls are building theme parks, like literal amusement parks inside the malls. Some of them are experimenting with, like, zip lines, things like that.
So you can zip line from one makeup store
to
all
the
the
other
way to the
one.
shoe store. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're starting to experiment with a bunch of different things, and I feel like those kind of I don't know if they're actually experimenting with zip lines or not, but they probably will be, because the thing is, they need to have a reason for people to go there rather than going online and shopping for it online. Because while online shopping is more convenient, the store provides an experience that online shopping can't replicate. And if they can deliver that experience better, they can get customers inside their doors. There's also a thing of, like, I feel like, certain retailers may be at their point of no return, but many of them can hop back. Like, for example, Macy's is planning a turnaround now. I feel like they have more potential than JCPenney, just due to,
Why?
in 2012, with Ron Johnson's big changes, really accelerated the decline of JCPenney and pushed into a point of no return. Because what he did was he changed everything about the store. He changed the layout, he changed the brands, and, like, everything in the store with no tests or anything. And when he made all these big changes, people were confused, and they just left the store, and they got no younger customers. That's where they're meant to attract, but didn't really succeed.
That's very interesting that you say that, because I know as for someone like myself that when I walk into a store and they completely change it, it freaks me out. I need to know where everything is. So if I go into a Target and the Target rearranged its store, I'm like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. So I could see that actually having an impact on the hard shopper who used to love JCPenney, and all of a sudden they go in there and it's unrecognizable.
Exactly, and not even just that, but even renovations, like, even when they're trying to, like, renovate their stores, like, even, like, if they're rearranging, like, the aisles because, they want to change, like, the paint on the aisles or whatever, or, like, maybe they want to make the signs look cooler or whatever, it's still, even during that period, it's confusing. Like, they'll often move around stuff at different times. You don't know where anything is. My mom actually did that once. She was shopping at Stop and Shop, one of our stores on Long Island, and a grocery store, and they were renovating it, and she didn't know where anything was, and she would literally just leave the store and give up. She didn't have the patience to go and look around the whole store looking for something.
So as we wrap up this session, in your opinion, what wins the day? I'm going to give you 3 different scenarios, okay? The upscale mall, the Target, or the Kohl's experience. Which one actually has the leg up at this point, in your opinion?
I feel like it depends on 2 things. One, the area, the location of this potential store. Because location matters. The people that you're serving is really a thing, like a factor. So, like, in an upscale area, a mall is probably going to win over a Target or a Kohl's. But in a more middle-class environment, the Target and Kohl's are probably going to succeed more. It also depends on how well some of these retailers adopt to sort of omni-channel platform where you can, go online and pick it up in the store, or, like, drive up, and all these, like, curbside pickup options. It also depends on the experience that they can provide, give me a reason to go there, their merchandise. There's a lot of different factors at play, but in a more upscale environment, it's probably, I would say, the upscale mall, but in the more middle class or, like, upper middle class thing, I feel like the better one would be Target, though Kohl's is starting to make major changes, and those might actually pay off for them. Kohl's sales have been stagnating for, 5 years, so I feel like they do have potential, though, to rise up, especially because they now have, all these new strategies that they're using to get people in their stores, and those strategies have potential. So Kohl's isn't like dead or anything. They have a lot of potential to really become something. So
now I will say this as we wrap up this session, is that one of the things I've learned is that my son downloads SEC filings and reads them copiously and understands this business way more than I do, and probably way more than 95% of the public. So thank you, Joseph, for this segment.
You're welcome.
And I really enjoyed our first ever podcast, and I hope to do many more. And we will
I
touch
do as
base.
well.
We will touch base on ton of different topics.
So make sure to tune in for episodes, probably every week, or basically whenever we feel like uploading. So
probably on a weekly basis.
Probably. So that wraps things up.
Thank you very much.
Bye.